Shikha.
Hi, Prachi. How are you?
I'm doing good. A very happy new year to you and a very happy new year to all our listeners and viewers right now.
Yes, wish you very, very, very happy new year and happy new year, everyone. By the time this is going to become, we'll be into the new year. So I hope you're having an awesome one.
Yeah, we really hope that you had a very good and auspicious start to the new year, and that this year will probably bring you everything that your heart desires, and that you find the courage and strength to work for whatever it is that you want.
Absolutely, with a great sense of balance.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what are we really talking about? Are we talking something around balance today?
In a way, yes. So today
Okay.
I just wrapped up a session with a client and a female client, and then
Mm,
we were just talking about her work life, and she has been wanting to do something of her own for a while, and she did that, and then she said, like, she was in a very high-powered job before that,
mm, mm,
a very high-powered profile, and then she quit that because she was like, okay, no, this is not the pace that I want, and I want to do something of my own.
mm,
Then she did something of her own for a while, but then she started then struggling with that whole missing out on of that, getting ready and going for work every day and
mm,
having that structure and routine. So
mm,
she's recently, like, she was offered a position and she took it just to see, what it's like. So we were, and now again she's saying that I'm probably planning to be in this for a certain time, and then I'll go back to doing my own thing. But maybe
mm,
I'll take more lessons from this and use that and
mm,
do it better this time around.
mm,
So we were generally having that conversation, and I was asking her, what is it that you like about like the current profile and how, what is it? So she said, uh, I like the structure, but I like structure, but flexible structure. So I want to have structure, but on my own terms, more flexible, more fluid.
mm,
So every day getting up in the morning at 6:30 and dressing up in a sari, and then like just like doing very prim and proper stuff and just reaching the office by this time. Every day doing that gets a little bit tiring for me. But that's the part I'm not liking. I wanted structure, but like a little bit more fluidity in that.
mm.
And she mentioned that in her current profile, she is in a supportive job, uh,
Okay. Mm,
right?
mm.
She helps them build whatever they are building.
Okay. Mm.
But she says that in my previous life, professional life, I was the main person generating the business, right? Like I
Ah,
was at the
in
center of it.
charge. Yeah.
And
Mm,
I like that. That is what
mm,
drives me.
mm,
So, profile wise, I miss that part. Like,
mm,
like the work that I'm doing, but I
mm,
always feel like I'm looking at the people who are in charge and I'm saying, oh, but you could do this better, but you could do that better, and I'm missing that.
mm,
So I just happened to comment that, it sounds like where it comes to your framework and your environment, you are wanting more of a feminine energy. And when
mm,
it comes to your role responsibilities, you are looking at more of a masculine energy. She was quite intrigued by it. She said, "What is this? I've never like thought about it like this." And
mm,
in fact, if you ask me like in layman terms, I feel like I am always masculine.
mm,
So I said, no, I've observed enough feminine traits in you, and it's
mm,
not about what you look like. It's more
mm.
about the energy that you're embodying.
Yeah.
We had like a really good discussion, and she said, in my 25 years of career, no one has ever explained all of this to me in these terms.
Mm,
And it's like you've like created a map for me on what I need to do in terms of the kind of workplace I need to create when I'm doing
mm.
my thing
Yeah.
and who I need to be.
Mm.
So I thought, how about we talk about the masculine and the feminine today?
It's such an interesting topic and one of my favorite things to talk about, and get into conversations around this because there's so many
Yeah.
ways in which this kind of manifests. And as someone who's worked with people and in the area of mindfulness and mindset, and I've realized how these two things, mindfulness and mindset, impact in the choices that we make and the experiences. And I've also often how these, observed how these energies kind of play a role. And they
Yeah.
are not rigid roles, they're very dynamic roles.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of this. And it has so little to do with whether you're born as a woman or a man, and it's always in the state of harmony,
Hmm.
and that's where the balance is created. And when we talk about mindfulness, now most of the time people see mindfulness as a very feminine, softer trait, but the
Right.
practice in itself, like the discipline of being mindful,
Mm.
the structure around it, that I'm going to have this routine of mindfulness, is a masculine quality.
Yeah.
While when you arrive in the state of mindfulness, that ability to let go and be is a
Mm.
feminine quality,
Yeah.
right? And mindfulness only works when both of them combine together. And that creates like that very, very powerful state, which leads to growth and transformation, which essentially means that you cannot grow to what is your potential or transform to your potential unless you've learned how to harmonize these two energies. And
Exactly.
that really is the crux and the beauty of, these two energies that exist. And yeah, and it's such a beautiful conversation. I mean, we have had this conversation so many times, and
Exactly. Talking to her made me realize that we should talk about this today because there are so many stereotypes people
yeah,
carry when it
yeah,
comes to masculine and feminine.
yeah,
And
yeah,
very few people think about it in terms of energy. We think
energy.
about it as traits and like
Yeah,
essence. So
yeah.
I thought that we should have
So,
this conversation today.
so I think a great place to start today was to pick your brains on are there really masculine and feminine energies? Do they really exist, and what
Yes.
does it look like?
I would confidently say that yes, they do exist, and I think it's a very evolutionary uh, aspect of our being, of our existence.
Hmm.
If you look at all the stories of origin, they will also talk about always a male and a female coming together and
Hmm.
leading to creation of life
Hmm.
as right.
Hmm.
And it's not just about the individuals or the persons. It's about basically, if you dig deep into all the origin stories, they are basically talking about the energy and how what you were saying, that harmonizing that energy always leads to creation,
Hmm.
always leads to birth and
Hmm. Growth
propagation of
and
species.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think it definitely is a very real concept.
Hmm.
And even if a lot of people say that, but then, there's no scientific backing for it, and you don't really have scientific texts talking about masculine and feminine energy. But I think that there is enough and more subtle evidence in science also.
Hmm.
If I have to give you an example, like I'm a psychologist, so when we look at diagnostic texts, right,
Hmm.
diagnostic manuals and everything, and you're looking at the epidemiology of disorders,
Hmm.
psychological conditions, you will always find the data divided according to, okay, this, let's say women are more prone to such and such condition, men are more prone to XYZ.
Hmm. Hmm.
What is this indicating?
Yeah.
Whether you say it in so many words or not, but it is definitely indicating that different things impact different
Hmm.
people in different ways.
Hmm.
And there are certain fundamental differences in the energies the masculine and the feminine bring into the world.
Hmm.
So I 100% believe that there are masculine and feminine energies, and everybody carries both
Yeah.
in different quantities. It's
Hmm.
not about the gender that you are born with or assigned. It's more
Hmm.
about something that exists from the beginning of creation within you,
Yeah.
learning how to harmonize that. Like if I have to just to begin this conversation, like talk about certain traits that fall under each category. Feminine traits are creative,
Hmm.
fluid. I
Hmm.
mean, energy traits, I would say, not
Hmm.
not woman traits, but I'm saying
Hmm.
feminine energy traits are creative, fluidity. They are emotion focused. There's a lot of nurturing involved. And I mean, as
Hmm.
we have this conversation further, I would really like to debunk a lot of
Yeah.
um,
Myths,
stereotypes that people
stereotypes. Yeah.
have around these words also.
Hmm.
Because language, honestly, like doesn't cover so many things that we would
Yeah.
want to
And
explain.
they have been stereotyped and used to reflect something for so long that it's kind of ingrained in our minds to associate it with
Exactly.
that, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So nurturing and feminine energy is receptive, it is communicative, it is collaborative, and it is intuitive.
Hmm.
Whereas masculine energy is assertive, it is ambitious, it is action focused,
Hmm.
it is logic oriented. Not to say that the feminine is not, but in a very different way. Again, I said language is very limiting.
Hmm.
Um, it's conquest driven. Conquest is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's fair and objective, masculine
Hmm.
energy, and it is very in the moment. For the feminine energy, it is about continuity and like a long-term picture. The
Hmm.
masculine energy is more about what is happening in the here and now, like
No.
in the moment.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that it exists, and I know from my experience with you, and from our conversations also, that
Hmm.
in yoga as well, you work with masculine and feminine energies,
Yeah.
and in fact, I think there are specific asanas to channel both. So,
Mhm.
how would you describe these energies? What is your experience?
So it's very beautiful in the way in which it is kind of described in yoga. And before I begin, like we were just saying, everybody who's listening, I would urge you to, when we to not listen to this thinking of man and woman, okay, genders. I would urge you to really think of it as two terms that you're probably exploring for the first time if you haven't kind of looked at them in this way. And also, when I talk of yoga, and I'm going to take certain names, I would urge you to not associate them to a particular religion. Okay, yoga is not a religion, it is a spiritual practice, which is that it cuts across people and religions and everything else. It's spirituality, it's not a religion. So in yoga principles, the masculine, yeah,
Let me just pause you there.
yeah,
When you said this, it gives me an idea, and maybe we can get our viewers to do this. And like Shikha said, that don't think about this in terms of man and woman. I wanted to close your eyes for a moment, all of you who are listening to this right now, and
mm,
imagine two energy cores. And
yeah,
this can come to you in any form. Some people imagine a shape, some people imagine something shapeless.
mm,
Maybe, the colors are different for you,
colors,
all of that. But just imagine two energy sources and stay with us through this conversation with the visualization that you were able to create, which will
mm,
allow you to break the confines in your mind that
yeah,
that usually we view with the masculine and feminine with, and you will
mm.
actually be able to really resonate with what we are going to say going
Yeah,
forward.
and be more receptive to it, which is what the beauty of energy is. The more receptive you are, the more easily you're able to kind of imbibe it and cultivate it into yourself. So, yeah, so maybe you want to do that.
Yeah.
So, in yoga, masculine and feminine are an integral part of each other. And the
Mhm.
masculine representation is Shiv, and the feminine representation is Shakti.
Mhm.
And they are not two different entities, they are together. So you see half Shiv and half Shakti, and that's why it's known as Ardhanarishwar, which means a masculine and a feminine together
Mhm.
as one. And so the masculine, which is depicted by Shiv, is has the qualities of stillness, has the quality of structure, has the quality of consciousness, which is beyond everything. So if you have to think in terms of energy, it's the energy that holds space. Think of a container in which life thrives. That container is Shiv.
Mhm.
So what happens to Shakti? Shakti, on the other hand, is the feminine principle. And
Mhm.
it represents movement, it represents creativity, it represents nurturing. It is also known as Prakriti, which is nature, right?
Mhm.
Which is creating everything.
Parish and Prakriti, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's Purush and Prakriti.
Mhm.
And it's a life force that brings in energy. It's a
Mhm.
life force that brings in passion. It's the life force that brings in reformation. And both of these energies are necessary. And most importantly, they are interconnected. They are never talked about in isolation because they cannot live or thrive in isolation. They don't mean anything in isolation, right? So, like I said, you cannot have a movement and not have form. So, for form to happen, you need movement because you need something to move and become form, right? You cannot have creativity without structure. It
True.
needs structure for the creative expression. So, if we talk about the physical practice of yoga, and you talked about asana, the ability to arrive in that posture and hold the posture, the structure of the posture is masculine.
Mm.
But the moment you arrive, you will be asked to surrender and you will be asked to connect to the flow of the breath, which is feminine.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's where you find balance. And that's why the practice of yoga is it feels so different than any other form of practice.
That's why it is yoga,
Yeah,
right?
it is yoga, right? It's union. And that is the union because that's why it gives you the sense of balance that it gives you because it's really combining both together,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's really is the beauty. So if we talk about yoga, this
Mm-hmm.
is how in the physical practice of yoga comes in. In the mindfulness practice, masculine and feminine is doing and being.
Mm-hmm.
right? Doing, putting the structure around it, putting a timetable, putting a routine that I'm going to sit every day for 20 minutes in meditation or in silence. That is the routine. But when you arrive in there, you cannot be doing anymore. You have to surrender. You have to come to the present moment. You have to let life flow through you. That's feminine. Again, it cannot happen beyond that. So the feminine will ask you for acceptance. It will ask you for presence. It will ask you to observe your thoughts and reflect upon things. And that's why in a balanced mindfulness practice, you must be able to use the masculine energy to commit to a daily practice and the feminine energy to give you that presence to let go in that moment.
To lean into it.
To lean into it, yeah. And then when it comes to mindset, it is basically represented as two essential approaches to growth. Okay, so one, the masculine is the strategy, it's the goal setting, it's the vision, what's going to drive, it's going to be those action plans. The feminine, on the other hand, is reflection, intuition, adaptability, the things that lets you to pivot on a startup when it's or something that you're doing, that change, that working with the dynamics outside. So when you're faced with a challenge, for example, the masculine energy will drive you to think logically, analyze it, take corrective measures. And the feminine energy will allow you to trust your intuition and all of that and come up with creative solutions.
I can like kind of relate to that as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, right. And you have to have both one, and it's not going to work. And then these energies are hence not opposite. Like we think that man, woman, and all the conversation we have like that. This is beyond all of these things that even come to my mind. Think of it like, action needs reflections, strength needs softness, and logic needs creativity. And, that's really is what yoga is all about. That's what it teaches us. And that's how it comes together in yoga, in mindfulness, the part of yoga, and also mindset, which is what yoga is really all about. And that's what it kind of boils down to.
I mean, how you described it, like by extending it to the mindfulness and the mindset aspect also, I mean, it's very easy to see that if anyone were to harmonize and learn how to channel the energies right, it can show up in every aspect of life, and it can actually aid in so many things that we generally struggle with, like control versus letting go.
Because it's not a very feminine thing to do.
Yeah.
But nobody is asking a female to be always feminine. If she is, then that's why there is so much of imbalance, right? That's why we feel not true to ourselves in the state of conflict, because we're not just one energy as people. So coming from there, tell me, are there like toxic and positive ways in which these energies manifest? Because we work with people and we see it. I'd love to know kind of your point of view on this thing.
So first, so if we think about any energy form, any trait, we must always move with the assumption that everything exists on a continuum, a spectrum. So it can always move from healthy to toxic depending on what it is exposed to and how it is developing. So just for the purpose of this discussion, especially when it comes to masculine and feminine energies, and based on everything I have studied and observed in the people that I've worked with on this principle, I prefer to first describe these as wounded energies. And when this wounded energy propagates and transmits to another person, then it becomes toxic. Because toxic can only happen in relation to another person.
Yeah.
Within you, yes, there are some things that are self-sabotaging, but most of the time the toxicity is only identified if it is transmitted to another person. Starts as a wounded energy, and then it, like, whatever impact that wounding is happening is creating, then it becomes toxic. When does a feminine or masculine become toxic? The principle is same for both. When their natural development is hampered and questioned, forced to change directions. For example, if we talk about the feminine energy, when the feminine's intuition is questioned and forced to explain with logic, Think about a little girl growing up and having this gift of intuition naturally
Hmm.
bestowed by, the creation.
Hmm.
And then she's saying that, okay, I feel like this, but then the way the structure around her is always asking her to explain with logic, no, but why
Hmm.
do you feel like this? And asking her to like break down that intuition, asking her
Hmm.
to dissect it into intellect.
Hmm.
That's where the intuition will dissipate.
Yeah.
And she will learn to second guess herself. She will learn to not
Hmm.
trust her intuition until it is explained by logic.
Hmm.
Or think about a scenario where the feminine, while developing, is attacked for feeling her emotions. Uh,
Hmm.
being called emotional as an insult
Yeah.
or as something which is lesser.
Hmm.
Or when the masculinity around a growing feminine fails to provide the safe, secure space for her to thrive.
Yeah.
Because that is what the job of a masculine energy is to
Hmm.
like you were describing a little
Yeah.
while,
The
right?
container. Yeah.
Create that safe structure so that she
Hmm.
can do what she does best.
Hmm.
But then if the masculine around her is also wounded,
Hmm.
they are not going to be able to create that safety within her, and
Hmm.
therefore her feminine will also suffer. Her
Hmm.
internalized masculine will suffer, but the feminine will suffer more.
Hmm.
And finally, if the feminine around her is driving shame into her heart for her being
Yeah.
rather than pride.
Hmm. That's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is also how like the feminine gets damaged very
Hmm.
fast. If the
Hmm.
if the women in your life as you grow are driving the idea of being or associating the idea of being a woman with shame or with something to
Hmm.
hide,
Hmm.
whether it's your body, whether it's your being and the way you are and how you are flourishing.
Yeah. So
All
many
of these
aspects.
are,
Yeah. Yeah.
all of these are ways that feminine
Hmm.
gets wounded early on
Hmm.
when they are developing. And if I talk about how this kind of manifests later in life, in case of the feminine, it'll
Hmm.
later manifest as attraction to wounded masculinity.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
And then she will force him to show up for her feminine as she wanted her primary caregivers to show up.
Yeah.
But because he's already wounded and she's attracted to wounded only, she will
Hmm.
get stuck in this loop where
Yeah.
she's continuously asking for something from somebody who's not able to provide it for her, and then reinforcing her feeling of not being worthy of it.
Hmm. And also not being enough or having or being empowered.
Yes, not deserving it, not
Yeah.
deserving love, being too much, those
Yeah.
kind of things.
Hmm.
And it can also manifest as repulsion for other women
Oh,
and a
yeah.
sense of envy, jealousy, competition. I think, matlab, I do this often in my Diva transformation retreat, right? That
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
centered around feminine energy. That every single time you speak to every participant, everybody has at some point or the other felt very proud of being told, oh, you're not like other girls,
Oh, yeah. Yes.
you know? So
Yes.
this is what excuse me, a wounded feminine is doing.
Hmm.
It is teaching you that this is something to be ashamed of to associate with.
Yeah.
And that's how it gets manifested in life later on.
Hmm. Yeah, that.
Talking of, sorry, yeah?
Sorry, I'm just saying that's so true. Like that whole association around,
Yeah.
don't run like a girl, or don't, oh, you don't like fight like a girl.
Oh, I don't like pink.
I don't like pink, and I'm not like other girls, or even the fact that I'm not as I'm strong like a man.
Yes, I'm strong.
Or like I fight like a man.
Exactly.
I'm saying this because I do boxing, and a lot of time there is that thing,
Yeah,
right?
right.
That, oh, I don't fight like a girl, and I always tell them, no, you should fight like a girl.
This whole divide that uh, drives you away from your own core energy is
Yeah.
also a product of the wounded femininity that you have internalized from other wounded feminine energies
Hmm.
around.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When
So
we talk about
continue.
the masculine,
Yeah.
then how the masculine gets wounded is when he is exposed to, in his developmental years, he's
Mhm.
exposed to wounded feminine that makes him feel like he's not good enough or
Enough.
not doing enough,
Hmm.
or she overloads him with emotions without providing enough opportunity for action and solutions.
Hmm.
this like brings a case to mind. I have a client who, we've been working for quite some time in therapy, and what has happened for him is like the reason he came in was because he was having this series of relationships which were quite intense, but also very turning very toxic eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And when we explored this, we realized that he had a mother who was an extremely emotional woman.
Okay.
But what she was essentially doing was whatever she was not uh, meet her needs that were not being met from her husband. She
Mm-hmm.
was venting about that to her son
Okay.
continuously and taking out all that emotional onslaught on him.
Hmm.
Not always as anger, but just like, maybe long crying spells or like just talking about how she's upset and,
Hmm.
helpless and trapped and all those things. But as a child, he did not have a lot of control on what he could do.
Hmm.
Right? He could not replace his father, of
Of
course, or
course.
he
Yeah.
didn't have, well, he was a child, right? He couldn't have control over
Taken
him.
his mom away or anything like that. Like
Exactly. He
all of
could
those
not have
things.
done
Yeah.
any of that. And that would essentially be reflected back to him in the sense that, what are you doing? Like, you have to become a man who doesn't do all of this. And, what are you
Hmm.
doing? And then, like, she would reflect back that helplessness to him. So he would continuously feel trapped. That
Hmm.
that emotional waves, those waves that were coming at him, they started overwhelming him so much that he stopped considering emotion to be a good thing, first of all.
Hmm.
And second, being trapped in that phase of not being able to take action
Helpless.
also wounded his
Yeah.
masculinity. His masculinity is about action. If I'm not taking action,
Hmm.
it's just getting, suppressed,
Snubbed. Yeah.
snubbed, exactly. So that's how it happened. And so later, when he was getting into relationships, one, he was getting attracted to women who were highly emotional. So replaying that
Yeah.
whole dynamic. But then when they would show their emotion, he would become the whiny and the needy one and saying, but you're not meeting my needs.
Hmm.
What is happening? And like, what is the point of crying so much if you're not going to do something about it?
Hmm.
So the women in his life started to feel like he doesn't show up
Hmm.
as the guy that we want him to show up. And with
Hmm.
time, he has started to like really see the kind of man that he might be appearing to
Other
those
women.
men, and
Women.
now
Yeah.
he's trying to heal
Hmm.
all that. So this is how the masculine gets wounded,
Hmm.
and therefore it later, as adults, it can manifest as attraction to hypercritical women,
Hmm.
which will fuel that sense of not being good enough.
Yeah.
It can also create the need to control and judge. Like a lot of
Hmm.
controlling men that you see, they actually have a very wounded masculine.
Yeah.
जिसको हम fragile masculinity भी बोलते
And
हैं.
very intolerant also, of course, as a
हाँ,
result of
so they
that.
will
Yeah.
become controlling, they'll become judgmental. True
Hmm.
healthy masculine is not judgmental, very fair, very objective,
And
but
very confident, right?
very
And so
confident.
of
Exactly.
themselves without being egoistic about it.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
the wounded masculine will become controlling, judgmental,
Hmm.
very fragile ego. And
Yeah.
it will also create a disconnect from the feminine as something to avoid. So either these men will end up objectifying women to maintain
Hmm.
that semblance of distance, or anything emotional coming from as long as she's also being the cool girl channeling her masculine, she is acceptable. But the moment her
Hmm.
emotions come through, they will, push her
Kind
away.
of
This
push
is
her
how
away.
they show up.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. And that's so interesting. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why this whole energy play is so important and significant in being able to work with people. And you realize it at all points of time because somewhere this is what plays. Because as even in yoga, that's what it said. And that's, I think, one of the most um, ancient scriptures that talked about it.
In fact, I wanted to
Everything is
ask
energy.
you this, that
Yeah.
do you also notice, are you able to notice a blockage of certain kind of energy in
Yeah.
yogic practice as well? And does that also manifest in certain ways? And
Yeah. So many.
so then, are there also ways prescribed to unblock it?
Absolutely, and it's so clear, and you can really identify and see it. Like we talked about how the masculine is around structure and action and things like that. So a blocked masculine energy would look like procrastination. 100%. They wouldn't want to take action, do things. They will feel indecisive and they will feel unmotivated, not wanting to do anything. And again, not just a man, even a woman, like the energy blocked is in both, right?
Yeah.
It could be a woman who's been indecisive and unmotivated. Again, difficulty in setting boundaries is again another of the things that comes up when the masculine is not very strong, the energy is not working very strong, or inability to achieve goals. Like maybe you set them vaguely, but you have no action plan around it. Physically, if we see, so all of these blockages manifest at the level of the mind, physical body, and the emotional body, right? So which are different kosha in our body. So when we talk about the physical body, the masculine energy is primarily towards the upper part of the body, above the torso, like this part. So we notice a lot of stiffness in the shoulders. Also, a lot of digestive issues are typically associated with masculine, because if you see the chakra around our navel is where is the chakra of self-confidence, surety, our power of into ourselves. And if the masculine is shaken and not in place, and lead to digestive issues. Back pain is again another thing, because back is again, we call it merudand, which means the structure of the body. So because masculine is structure, so if there is any kind of concerns in the back, is primarily some disassociation with the masculine energy. Now, if we look at it emotionally, in the emotional body of ours, then it'll show in this sense of overwhelm, right? And lack of confidence. You're not showing up for yourself. You don't know what are you standing up for. It also shows as
like aimlessness or something.
Yeah, and also excessive passivity. So, okay, everything is okay. Chalega, kuch bhi chalta hai. Like not able to take a stand. And that's how it kind of showcases, because the masculine is all about action and structure. And blockage primarily will show up as resistance to any kind of change and any initiatives, and having that sense of being disempowered. Like the feeling of being stuck, which is something that I work with a lot, like people being stuck. And I often talk about getting unstuck in life. So the masculine is typically the energy that I work with when it comes to that. Now, when it comes to feminine being blocked, it shows as a lack of creativity, and a lack of flow, in the sense that, again, feeling stuck, but in a different way. Disempowered is that you're just going with whatever is happening completely, and you have no power. Lack of flow just means that you feel that nothing is moving. Right? So like that difference, that kind of a distance. And then disconnection with your intuition. That, you just don't know. There is a feeling, but you're not able to connect to it. You're not able to connect with your emotions. So you feel overpowered by your emotions. You have no connection. You don't know why you feel a certain way. Again, like you spoke about, and that's another thing. The feminine energy is more around the lower half of the body. Right. So in the physical aspect, which is, our primary first coach, it exists as tightness in your hips. Right? That's a very, very important way in which that kind of exists. Also, hormonal imbalances are primarily associated with the, feminine energy being off the guard. In terms of emotions, it'll express as anxiety. It will accept rigidity, not being flexible. I will not do this, come whatever. Even if you tell me that's the right thing, even if I know it's the right thing, I'll not do it, because my feminine is kind of, I'm not aligned to it. It's not going to move. So I'm staying stuck with that. And so that are the ways in which, these manifest. So then when it comes to balancing masculine energy, setting the right kind of goals, enabling them by setting the right kind of intentions, enabling them by setting the right kind of action plan is very important. Making a routine is very important. So we work at the level of micro habits when it comes to balancing the masculine energy. A lot of grounding activities, like walking barefoot on the ground, because masculine likes structure. The strongest structure we have is earth. Right? Yeah. So we walk on that barefoot. It's really very nice. Again,
that support.
You feel supported, right? You can draw the energy from it. Postures like the entire warrior sequence. So we have 3-4 warriors that we practice, Veerbhadrasana, call it in that. Tadasana, mountain pose. Very strong structure.
Very
posture in which the entire body is used, again, is great when it comes to practicing or releasing the energy. When it
true.
comes to breath work, anything which is action oriented. So Bhastrika is a pranayam that we do, which is brilliant for men. It
Pass.
invokes, again, it
Mm.
invokes the fire of the belly. It's called the breath of
It's very
fire in
active
English.
inhale and
Yeah.
active exhale.
Yeah,
So
exhale. So yeah, that and Kriya mein Kapalbhati. Again, it's active and you
yeah,
use your belly because that's where the fire is in our body. And
yeah.
invoking the fire is a very masculine element again. So that's why. When it comes to feminine, then creative expression, painting, dancing, music, all of those things are great. And so connecting to the softer, gentler sides of things.
Rhythm.
Yeah, rhythm is extremely important. Meditation, like guided meditation, are beautiful for channelizing the feminine energy because it really allows you to surrender and someone's holding space for you. In
Mm.
terms of movement, vinyasa flows are great. Hip hop practices are great when it comes to movement based of invoking the feminine and very receptive breath work like Nari Shodhan,
Mm.
very
Mm.
calming, again, balancing are great for when it comes to working with the feminine energy. So these are just the ways in which I combine yoga and mindset.
I
And
also remember we've also done that whole Surya Namaskar versus Chandra
Chandra
Namaskar.
Namaskar, yeah. So that's again towards the evening when things are a little more flowy and you move out of structure and you move into like a relaxed state of mind and it's more easeful. It's not fire invoking. So the moon's energy is of course often associated with the feminine, though the
Mm.
yin and yang is a little different approach. It's more
Mm.
like action versus
Yeah.
passivity. Feminine and masculine is slightly different, but yes, the Surya Namaskar is more fire and the Chandra Namaskar is more flow
Flow. Flow.
because
Yeah.
it just flows from one to another and sideways and in facing one direction. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. So when we would practice the Surya Namaskar, like I remember we would hold the pose
Yeah.
for, certain this thing, but you made it a point to tell me in Chandra Namaskar that, you don't have to stop, like just flow
Yeah, you
through.
just have to flow. Exactly. And the moments, times when we feel a little disassociated with our emotions, or we
Mm.
feel that something is very overwhelming and we are not able to wrap our heads around it, Chandra Namaskar is a beautiful practice to do. It really sort of calms
Yeah,
you down.
it does. It does. It really does.
Yeah, so that's what how I approach the whole masculine and the feminine when it comes to this aspects of it. Coming back to there and your work on this particular thing, how do you really cultivate or enable people to cultivate these healthy masculine and feminine energy? We spoke about the toxic, the blockage. How does your work enable you to do that?
Um, as we are talking about this, and we've talked about this before also, I'm realizing that even though technically what you do and what I do can be considered separate disciplines, but especially when it comes to this aspect, I'm realizing there is so much of connection in like the way we are approaching
Mm,
this work, you and me both, and um, so that way I would probably, if I talk about how do we cultivate the healthy masculine and feminine, it would pretty much reiterate the stuff that you've said. But if I speak about it from a psychologist standpoint or from something that I would like work with my clients on, um, definitely first recognizing the wounds,
mm,
because the wound is not going to be the same for everyone. Like I initially, when I was talking, I said that the feminine can get wounded in XYZ ways. So there are multiple ways, and different people would have encountered different environments growing up, which would have led to different wounds. So the first step always is definitely to recognize the wounds, and I would work with them in revisiting the
mm,
environment, trying to really step into their shoes and feeling what they would have been feeling, and with the energy around them,
mm,
and helping them recognize the wound. Then also, second, becoming aware of however those wounded traits are not serving you. So a lot of times what happens is that whatever early wounds we encounter psychologically
mm,
and we internalize,
mm,
they very much become automatic habits of sorts.
mm,
They become automatic behavior patterns.
mm,
So if I, not in an energy concept, but just to clarify this as an example, if I, let's say, have grown up in an emotionally unavailable environment,
Hmm.
then for me also looking at emotional availability as something that is threatening
Yeah.
can become a very automatic thing, and I wouldn't even realize
Realize.
I was
Yeah.
running away from intimacy because of it.
Hmm.
Right? So I can keep craving for intimacy, but actually my actions are completely opposite.
Hmm.
So same thing, and this can be taken in the feminine energy or a masculine energy context also. And so first figuring out ki what are the patterns that I'm, because of that wounding, I am exhibiting in an automatic fashion,
Yeah.
and what is not serving me.
Hmm.
Uh, then allowing myself to lean into my core energy, right? When I say core
Hmm.
energy, here, yes, the gender comes into play.
Hmm.
In the sense, the biologically or evolutionarily, what I'm born into,
Hmm.
most likely it is my core energy.
Yeah.
So if I'm born as a woman,
Hmm.
my feminine is my core energy. I may
Hmm.
have chosen to display a different track of energy,
Hmm.
but somewhere the core belongs to the feminine energy
Yeah.
and the masculine balances it.
Hmm.
Vice versa would happen in a man. If somebody is
Hmm.
born as a male, then the core energy will be masculine. It's just that the feminine will balance it. And
Hmm.
how it gets expressed later in life, of course, is a product of multiple factors.
Yeah.
But just like doing away with this mental barrier, because I mean, if you are listening and you remember, I had asked you to visualize energies, not people.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you have to break that box and allow yourself to lean into your core energy.
Hmm.
Because once you do that, it will enhance a sense of belonging for you.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that happens when you're not aligned with your core energy is this constant feeling of, I don't belong here.
Belong. Yeah.
Where do I belong? What is my place?
Hmm.
Like, I see, like again in my retreat, I see a lot of women who will like post the age of 30, 35. Once, their life tasks are so called pretty much out of the way,
Hmm.
kids are a little grown up and, all of that has happened. They start to feel like this disconnect from the universe in general.
Yeah.
Because with other women, I have not identified. I have kept
Hmm.
myself away.
Hmm.
I'm never going to be accepted into the male masculine clique,
Click.
so to
Yeah.
say. I'm never
Yeah.
going to become one of them.
Yeah.
So where am I?
Where do
This
I belong?
limbo. And this limbo is what creates that existential angst and that sense
Hmm.
of, not knowing where my place is. So if you're going to break that box and you're going to allow yourself to just lean into your core energy, then you will
Hmm.
enhance a sense of belonging. You'll find
Yeah.
where you belong in the universe.
Hmm.
Other thing that needs to be done is meeting your shadow parts. So when you're becoming aware of the wounds, you will also become aware of the shadow parts. Shadow parts technically are those parts uh, which are irritating you, annoying you in other people,
Hmm.
but you contain them somewhere within you, and therefore you are able to see it projected, and that's how it annoys you. Like, for
Yeah.
example, if it's a wounded masculine and he has a partner who's very successful,
Hmm.
he is going to attack her for it. He's going to resent her for it.
Yeah.
Because somewhere in his shadow part, he sees himself as not so successful.
Hmm.
That's why we see so much of power dynamic happening in a lot of, partner relationships.
Relationships. Yeah.
So meeting your shadow parts is one essential aspect of just confronting those parts and facing them and then embracing them is a very important part of
Hmm.
activating the healthy energy. Learning to take pride in your core energy.
Yeah.
And pride does not mean arrogance.
Hmm.
Pride is coming from a place of humility,
Yeah.
compassion, and you know, just being confident and being uh,
Like owning it.
happy and fulfilled
Yeah.
that what I bring to the table is valuable.
Hmm.
Having that
Exactly.
inherent sense of value.
Yeah.
So learning to take pride in your core energy and not running away from it or not discarding it as something which is, oh, I don't like this. I
Hmm.
don't identify with this. No,
Yeah.
it's not going to work in the long run.
Hmm. No, I
And
agree.
I think, yeah, and I think finally, once you've done all of this, then increasing your opportunities to associate with more healthy energy emanating people.
Hmm.
Once you start doing this work, you will automatically start to see a lot of wounded energy that you've been associating with so far.
Yeah.
And then you will be able to identify the people who have moved beyond that.
Hmm.
So that journey will also happen where your social circle will start to change.
Change. Yeah.
Kind
Big
of people
time.
you are friends with
Hmm.
start to change. The kind of people you now feel bored with, is going to change.
Yeah.
And this can be actually quite scary for a lot of people because they start to feel like, oh shit, I'm losing my friends,
Friends. Now I'll not have anyone.
now I won't have anyone.
Yeah.
And healing can become a disorienting journey in that
Hmm.
aspect that. But the fact is that people you associated with in your unhealed versions will
I'm not
stop
going to serve
serving
you.
a purpose in your life. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. They're not going to serve you anymore. That's,
Right. So now you will
yeah.
have to move towards that, and that will always happen because at any given point of time on this earth, there are multiple people who are probably on the same phase of journey that you are.
Hmm.
So once you develop that within yourself, you will also attract that and you will
Yeah.
be attracted to that.
Yeah. Oh,
So yeah,
true.
I think these are some of the ways that I think can be, healthy energy can be cultivated. It's not like you
Hmm.
have to live with the wound for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that was an interesting conversation,
Yeah.
really. And it's just beautiful how these energies play and how we can work with them and how we can own them. And it's all about the balance, you know.
Yeah.
When we accept both energies, we're able to connect better with others who are working with their energies, and we're able to find a higher sense of relatability to people. Like empathy becomes better, our levels of connections become better, the way we interact and meet and share experiences becomes so much better,
Yeah.
because we are no more judgy, we're not no more jealous, we're no more comparing, we're safe in our space.
Yeah.
When we connect with this place of safety, and I tell this to a lot of people who are also looking for, and we've discussed these in our dating episodes as well, when we're looking to connect with people, this
Mhm.
is a very important aspect of finding meaningful connection,
Exactly.
to be able to feel safe in yourself. And that happens only when you're feeling balanced. So, yeah, this is an area of work for all of us. We all have places that we need to work on. But yes, I'm glad that we had this conversation today.
Me too. I think the moment like this client of mine today, like she got so fascinated by this, I was like, it is indeed a very fascinating aspect of work, and
Yeah.
we should totally bring it to our viewers.
Hmm. And we have
I
spoken about ours so many times.
We have, yes, we have.
Yeah.
I think probably for us also, like this is the first time we've had such a
Structured.
structured discussion around this. That's exactly the word I was thinking, right? Like the structured discussion around it, and yeah, it never ceases to fascinate me. This aspect,
Yeah.
I got introduced to this energy concept, I think maybe 6, 7 years ago, and
Hmm.
it's been unstoppable since then. Like the insights it has brought to my work, or the work that I have been able to do with the help of this concept has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
And
It
I think
is.
if everybody can just incorporate this and break away from the stereotype of what is masculine and what is feminine, we are definitely going to have a very balanced, loving, compassionate world at our hands.
Absolutely. So beautiful. And I think every time I speak about it, I get goosebumps. I get so excited about talking about it. Like I've had it multiple times in our conversation today. But with that, I think we're good to wrap up today, and coming up with another interesting episode soon. I'm always super excited to talk to Prachi. And with that, we would like to say goodbye for today. Take care of
Thank you for
yourself.
joining us. And like always, if you liked this, let us know. If you want to share this with someone who you think is probably trapped in such cycles, please do that with them. And yeah, subscribe to our channel and keep coming back to us for more conversations like this.
Absolutely. Take care of yourselves, people. We'll see
Bye.
you again
Bye.
soon.
Good night.